Promise, in this episode, we will be starting this engine, in this form at least. So we've had to pretty much start getting everything to the point where we can fire this thing up on the stand. Water pump has arrived. We got some stuff from Holly, which I'll talk about later when we put turbos and stuff on. Standard Dizzy, started running all the plugs and leads. Everything's actually tightened now, so the manifold's on, the carb is on. We just got a Rochester, just a 4-barrel. It's a standard carby that they ran back in the day. We're gonna run some fuel line in with a standard fuel pump, just low pressure one. Water line, we're just gonna run to an old GQ radiator that we got. So it's pretty close. There's a couple of leads that we need right angles on, so waiting on that. Wait on a Welsh plug for the cam on the back, and also just a few little bits and pieces here and there. So hopefully they should arrive in the next couple of days, and then we will start this thing up in this episode, I promise. But in the meantime, we're gonna run outside and lay some paint on the body. We are using the TXT coating again, the same stuff we use on the undercarriage, but we're gonna try and dial it back a bit so it's not as coarse. It'll be sort of a little bit more of a flat finish. So we've prepped the body, we've sanded it down by hand with a bit of 600 grit, bit of wet and dry, cleaned it with some wax and grease remover, covered up all the windows and that, and let's bomb this thing. We're using the gun that's supplied with the TXT coating. We found out with the chassis it's a really good gun. You can actually change the texture quite easily as you spray. So let's go lay this thing on. Yeah, that was actually really hard. So the TXT it's obviously a chassis paint, so it's not meant for the outside of a car, but we are doing that and we were really struggling to try and not get train tracks, which is, I mean, the nozzle comes out quite fine. It's a very fine tip. It's not like a fan that you normally get with a spray booth gun. So trying to come back over your lines as much as you can to reduce the tracks is all you could really do. We pulled back a bit more, increased the pressure, and it sort of helped a bit, kind of more of a dust coat over it. But it definitely needed 2 coats. Try and do it in some different directions, some longer runs. It's a little bit patchy. It rains too, which does for one of the guards. It completely just, it reacted and made the whole paint go really dull and matte. So we've gone over that. The rain stopped a bit now. It's the worst conditions to paint, but we got to get this done. So we're gonna let it set for a couple of days and see how it lays out. This is one of those paints that are really kind of over time mature, and as it's drying, it's flattening out a bit too. I've noticed it was quite like textured before, but now it's laying out, and hopefully the patchiness as it dries, it'll make the kind of color more uniform. At the moment, it's still like wettish patches and dry patches, so we'll let it set for a couple of days. May or may not do like a matte clear coat over it, but at least it's painted. We use way more tins as well. When we did underneath, we used like 2 tins. We've gone through like 2, 4, 6, probably 10, because we've done 2 coats over a whole car and the roof guards, everything. So it's come out all right. We'll see how it looks in a couple of days.
The next day.
Alrighty, we've let the paint set for 24 hours overnight, and it's still got a few lines in it. There's a bit of track work. Obviously, that gun we use is a very fine tip, so kind of suspected it was going to happen. Like, as much as you can overlap the paint and get an even coat, you'll always get the lines in it. It's pretty bad on the roof, that's pretty normal. So I'm gonna do a final top coat with the gun. So with the gun, you can get the spread happening, a bit more of a fan, so you can get good overlap. You gotta thin the paint down about 15 or 20%. So we'll do that final top coat, a bit of a dust coat, and it should help even out that paint and make it look a bit more uniform. And then it's pretty much done. SAS has come around for a very exciting thing I wanted to do on the windscreen for a long time. That should be happening in the Savo. Just for the kids out there, and for me, I'm an adult kid, but it's from the cartoon Cars. We're putting some eyeballs on the front. So get this paint sorted, get the front windscreen wrap on, and it should look mint. If it looks like an absolute mess, it's because it is. This is a very primitive technology. Got that? I learned this word the other day from Mitch. What's primitive mean? Like caveman. It's very caveman, so it's the correct word to use. So we are getting ready to start the motor on the stand. We've explained why we're doing this in literally every other episode. So we're just using the old GQ radiator. First we'll run water through it. Luckily it's got an electric water pump, so we can just circulate the water, make sure that's going. Then we add oil in, same deal. We've got an oil, put a drill in, make sure we build oil pressure. Tick that box, then we put fuel in. It should have its own internal regulator because it's only a low pressure pump. Give that a couple of squirts, make sure it's squirting oil, squirting fuel. So then we have circulating water with no leaks, oil pressure with no leaks, fuel squirting in with no leaks. That's everything you need except spark. Now spark will come over this way because I was a little, well, not confused with this, but I just haven't done it before. So old school technology, instead of having, most modern cars have a coil pack on top of the plug, they come straight up just like my RB motor. But with old school engines, they use a distributor. So this rotates off the cam and it just sets firing points. Now, normally you have an external coil pack, which is what will happen when we run it with the blower and everything. But this is electronic dizzy. I was a little bit confused with some of the wiring diagrams, so I just thought I'd do a test. It's primitive, it's very primitive.
I don't know if we need the earth cable.
We do, because the spark plug earths through the vice back to the battery, and then we've got the coil earth back to the battery, and then a coil positive. So you're gonna have to go wide lens and spin that. We'll put positive on here, and as we rotate the distributor, it should create spark. Shoot it on the spark plug, show it. Turn it, ready, go. Look at that, you can hear it, it's sparking. As it goes around, bang. So it knows we got spark. That would be cool, hey? Should we do it again? Yeah. Look at that. Just go really fast, like 4,000 RPM. So you can hear that firing inside the distributor, which means the wiring I've got sorted. There was 5-volt signal and a signal earth, and that's because it's got electronic advance control. We don't need that for running it in. We're gonna set the timing, fixed at about 15 or 20 degrees. When it's at about 2,000 RPM, we wanna sit it. So that's not crucial. We've got spark just by rotating and having that hooked up, which means oil, spark, fuel, and water, it should start. So we're waiting on a couple of parts, and then we can fire this thing up. So it's just about checking everything perfect before you go ahead and just try and fire the thing out of the blue. Well, let's put it back together. Okay, we're getting very close. A few little test bits and dramas we had. We had to take the carby apart. It's not properly working. I mean, it's one of those things, even though that carby was rebuilt, it's been sitting for a long time, all the seals can dry up, and the little accelerator pump isn't pumping fuel into the cylinders or into the primaries. So we're just going to rely on pure vacuum. Hopefully it sucks the fuel through. We made sure the float's working. It is filling up the carby with fuel, so hopefully that'll work. We tried a few things on here so I can set up different, I've got whatever that is, fans, so we've got cooling. And then we got, don't know what that is, fuel pump, and then should be water pump. So we ran the water around. Couple of tiny leaks, but it should be enough. It won't empty itself. Then the last thing's fuel pressure. So what you want to do with a big block, and it's a pretty good idea to do with any motor, to be honest, when you first start up, is to try and raise your oil pressure before you fire it up. So luckily with the old school Chevys, they run on a little gear drive on the back side of the distributor straight into the oil pump. So you can buy a tool which goes down and spins the pump with a drill. So we ran that around, not super fast, we just got a bit of pressure up, and you can feel some resistance. So we're actually getting oil pressure. So that's pretty good. I don't know how fast we're spinning, that's probably at idle, so we've got about 40, 50 pound. So we've got oil pressure, we checked for leaks, that's all good. There was a little leak in the rocker cover. We'll have to tape up this hole here, and then we should be good to go. There's oil coming out of here, Mitchell, but hopefully it's an old leak. The last thing to do, I'm gonna grab the timing light and we'll go up to the forklift and just make sure it works on that. Just run it, put it on the first cylinder, make sure we're getting consistent lights coming out on the timing light, because I got a feeling that might be a bit dodgy. If it is, we're gonna have to get another one. Otherwise, one person on the gun, other person on the dizzy. I'll show you how we set that up with the firing order next, and then we can pretty much throw some fuel down the carby and see if it fires, and at least make some sort of spark. Oh, I'm choking on something. I'm that excited. So we found one of the few things around this place that actually has spark plug wires. The old petrol forklift. So the timing light, the idea of a timing light is to pretty much, I'll go this side, pretty much show when the first cylinder is firing, which is crucial when you want to set your timing on any non-electrical motor, like it's an old Dizzy motor. So hopefully...
So how does it work, Sam?
It's a Hall effect sensor. Back to my electrical engineering days. So it's little eddy currents that go around the cable. It creates a magnetic field, and there's little magnets in here, and it interrupts the magnetic field, sending electrical signal into the end of this light, which triggers probably a little diode thing, and then your light flashes exactly when the spark plug goes. So
that's actually really interesting.
for this one, it doesn't matter exactly what plug we put it on, as long as it's on a plug. See the light? So I think that's working all right. And as it revs, it'll speed up. All right, we're just gonna send it. At least it's flashing, that's the main thing. All right, so this is that little tool that we use to prime the oil pump. Now, that runs on a gear. It's just got a flat little bar on the end of it, which is what's on the bottom of the Dizzy. Now, I need to mark where first cylinder is and point that roughly towards the first cylinder on the engine. You want to roughly set the static timing correctly. So on this Dizzy, the cap can only go on in one spot. So there's a little blank there. Here's where I've marked the first cylinder. So I'm going to turn the rotor cap to be roughly where that first cylinder is, just like that. Now the engine's at top dead center, or it should be, I'll check that. So there's roughly one there. And when you look on the bottom, you can see the angle of the oil pump gear. And I want to spin the gear in the motor to roughly match that, because as it goes down, it sits into the cam and then it will rotate and it want to fully drop down onto the oil pump. Well, I got that straight away, that's straight down. So now, the rotor cap is not pointing in towards cylinder one, so we want to lift it up, bring it back a tooth, and drop it on there. But now it's not fully seating because the oil pump's not lined up. So then we get our tool and knock it back a little bit. Feel it drop in, go back a bit. There we go, that's actually bang on. So number one, put that on, lock it in place. There, and we'll roughly spin the Dizzy. So number one. Now when we want to set the time when the motor starts, we can just rotate to advance or retard the timing. That's what the timing light's for. So we'll lock that down, put the spark plugs on in firing order cylinder. So it's a 2, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2. Most old boys will know that by memory. Put all the plugs on, wire this up. I don't think we can just start it. We're gonna get the revs straight up to like a nice idle, just 2 grand. We don't have a tacker, so we're gonna do it about here, just and just sit it there for about 10 minutes. We'll put a timer on, turn it off, don't let it idle, and just let it cool naturally back to room temperature. And then maybe tomorrow we'll give it another run up at a different RPM, and then shut it off, flood all the oil, and that should hopefully set it in. So there's a bit of a process, but you have to do it right or it'll just explode. All right, so what happened there, it was running really hot, which means it's lean or just got way too much timing. So I couldn't actually see where the timing mark was, so I need to mark it better. Can you back this off so you can spin it? Where's that spanner? Oh, actually, hold on. I think I know why it's running lean. If we block, the brake booster vent is open, so it's getting way too much air. Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Those leads get so hot. It's because it's shorting out, it creates a fire.
The heat shrink has caught fire. Oil's pissing out of the dipstick hole.
If you shut it off in between, as long as you don't let it idle, you can like reset. So we'll let it cool, try again tomorrow.
Oh, shit, that was so intense.
Let's try again tomorrow. My heart's racing, holy shit.
That was the most intense.
But as soon as I fixed that inlet vacuum, it just fixed the fuel ratio. Like it was running way sweeter. So it was getting too much air before it was leaning out. But oh, it's quick. It's like whop, whop.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want to do when you're running it in. It doesn't sound like it's the cam.
Nah, it sounds mint.
Just need a little leak tour, damage report.
These got so
melted plug, oil out the front, water out the front, oil out the side, probably fuel out the side, water out the back. Oh my God. No cap on the cover, it's just pissing out oil. It feels warm. Wow, what's up?
Delivery for you?
Yeah, bro. Let me explain to you what happened yesterday because there was a lot going on yesterday and filming wasn't the number one priority. There was we literally needed 3 people for this, but there was only 2 of us here. So the camera was just there and there was a lot of panic. So I thought about it and it is still running lean. So the reason why we couldn't let it run completely for the 10 minutes or whatever is the exhaust was getting way too hot, which made the engine get hot because the firing in the cylinder was so lean, it was creating a hot burn. And I think the reason for that is this carb is jetted wrong. So the Rochesters are on a lot of 350 Chevys as well. This being a 454, it probably doesn't have the jets in it for a big block. So had a bit of a think, spoke to the old man, he's done a lot of this stuff, and we might just try and drizzle in a little extra fuel in the carby as it runs to richen it up a bit. I'm gonna pull a plug out, see how lean it actually is running. I'm expecting it to be quite lean. I'm gonna dump the oil out as well. I did check it already. There's no metallic bits, but there's a lot of gunk in there from obviously building the motor, all the run-in lube and engine assembly lube. So I'm gonna drain the oil, take the oil filter off, cut that open and make sure there's no metallic bits in that, and then put a new filter on, new oil in it, and try it again. So we've welded up the exhaust this time. That was the other thing. It was really loud and a pain to speak to each other when things were trying to happen. I'm happy with the timing now. I think to help with the heating issue, I'm gonna knock it back and retard the timing by like 5 or so degrees, bring it down to about 10 degrees, and that should hopefully help it run a bit cooler. There is still leaks, but I'm not gonna worry about that just yet. It's pretty much just setting the oil level, so I think the dipstick has arrived. Now the leads issue, we obviously saw a fire in there. The problem with that, the leads I got from Holly are obviously straight on one end, which is normal for most cars, but with these turbo headers that shoot up, we need some right angle leads that come out because the straight ones are just hitting the exhaust. I managed to make up a couple just using some old leads we had lying around that should work. So the leads are away from the exhaust now, so that should avoid fires. Keeping the RPM up. Obviously we want to keep the oil splashing into the can to keep it lubricated and working. I don't think I mentioned that at the start, but that's why we're doing that. I'm sort of happy with the RPM. It was a little high in the second run up, and obviously the first start up, it was sitting at idle a bit, which is pretty scary, but like I said, I don't see anything metallic in the oil, so I don't think we did too much damage there. So yeah, let's dump all the fluid, see how it looks, and then try it again. All right, so the oil's looking good. There's a lot of crap in there. So obviously all the run-in lube when you build the motor and that, but there's nothing metallic in there, which is good. So I put some new oil in. Well, you wanna make sure you use full zinc oil and not synthetic. So when you're running in the motor, use mineral oil, and it needs that zinc in there so those cams and lifters can actually rotate with a bit of friction. So just topping up all the water, putting the new oil in there as well. And this time I was going to try and just drop a little bit of extra fuel in to try and keep the thing cool, and then hopefully we can get more than like 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll give it another run up till it gets hot and then shut it off. So got Big Mac here as well, so we've got a little bit of help. Hopefully we can have a few more hands on the thing to get the timing set. Oh, because I came up with a flash idea. Because the engine's on the ground, I couldn't drain the sump, so I used the drill to pump the oil out the side, but now it's messed with all the timing. So I'm gonna have to try and reset that, which is a bit of a pain, but see how we go this time. Yeah.
Everyone get the f away.
Now it's getting hot. All right, a little bit more calm than yesterday, but I think it's pretty much run in. It sounds good there. We'll check the oil again, make sure there's no bits, but it's pretty safe to just throw in the car now. And then when we start up with the blower and that, just try and keep the revs up for a little bit more before we let it idle, but it's still running real lean. So even though it's dumping fuel down the intake, it's just those headers are getting so hot. So yeah, hopefully we'll tune it properly with the EFI and it will avoid that just, it's like radiating heat. Like it was frying my...
It's so hot in there.
Frying my f***ing hairs, eh? I was standing next to it.
I was trying to get my hand in there to take the f***ing plug
Out
off.
of control.
Burned all the hair.
Well, let's put it in the chassis. All right, so I might need a little bit of help in the comments with this one because I did not know which converter to go with. So I ended up doing a 2.5, like 2.5 grand stall. Now, obviously with the cam, having a stall was a good idea, but I want this thing to like hunt it idle and like what? So maybe not having a stall will help it want to like lunge forward like that. So I don't know, if you have like a gnarly burnout car or drift car, or not drift car, street car, tell me what converter to go with, because I'm just going to start with this and hopefully it's all right. There's a little collar in here for the oil pump, so you got to rotate it until it locks in and make sure it goes in, because a lot of people put them on, they just shove it on, then they go and try and put it up to the engine and crush that oil pump gear. So I've got to make sure it's rotated. I've put a new seal in here and then we'll whack it onto the car. It's super easy to do flywheel bolts on these because the whole bottom of the housing is open. So you just come through and throw your nuts in after, but we'll do that once it's in the car, Loctite them, and that should be converter sorted. What's that?
Sketch.
Why does it actually look kind of cool?
Mitch has hated this thing, and he kind of likes it, just like I hated his ute, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I actually kind
You're like, oh, by the way, there's my eyes. I didn't tell you about the eyes.
The eyes are pretty cool.
Sucks you won't be able to see it when there's turbos up here, but